Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Concerned Citizens Media again. Uh, Tonight, I have some news to share with you and a couple of videos after I read the news. Let's start the news first. Oromo Liberation Front OLF has been stronger and brutal, especially in eastern Welega Horro district in Oromia region. This is from eyewitness account from that region. This eyewitness informed to the media on the phone that Oromo Liberation Front fighters have been expanding their control in this area, and the local militia and Oromia Special Forces couldn't handle them. According to this eyewitness, Oromo Liberation Front fighters forced thousands of Amaras flee from their homes and held about 2,000 of them hostage. This eyewitness also informed the interviewer on the phone call that the survivors couldn't collect the bodies of those killed and bury them properly. The eyewitness himself is from Amhara ethnic group, and he is begging for the arrival of Abiy Ahmed's defense force to control the situation. This first-hand account is not yet supported by other independent media reports. This could be a media propaganda against Oromo Liberation Front. However, Concerned Citizens Media still encourages Oromo Liberation fighters to avoid attacking unarmed civilians unless they are part of informants or part of the local prosperity members. OLF must always follow the strategies that narrow their enemies and increase the general public support for their freedom movement. Gold hasn't been coming to the Ethiopia Central Bank from Tigray region for the last 2 months. That is the statement of Takkala Uma, Ethiopian Energy and Mineral Minister. Mr. Takkala also said that the TPLF is in possession of this gold, and hopefully it will be back in the circulation when the branch banks start operating in Tigray region. Mr. Takkala also mentioned that the government revoked licenses from 63 big and small companies that have been working on gold research, mining, and operations for violating their licensing agreement. Concerned Citizens Media believe that these shutdown companies most probably are operated by individuals from the Tigray region, even though the minister didn't say it, fearing global criticism or condemnation. The international community is already aware of the Abiy Ahmed's operation against ethnic Tigrayans since he came to power. Ethiopia closed its door to any calls for independent investigation on the war crime committed in Tigray War. Several human rights organizations, nations, and the Ethiopians in the diaspora community repeatedly called for independent investigation for the massacre carried out especially in Mykadra and other Tigray region. Similar calls were made for the killing of artist Achalu Hundessa, engineer Simon Bakale, and others rejected by Ethiopian authorities. Ethiopians do not trust the investigation and the blame game conducted by Abiy Ahmed's government structures. Ethiopia, especially Oromia region, became the land of lawlessness since the Abiy Ahmed group came to power. Citizens under the government-controlled jails and prisons have been taken out, killed, and thrown into forest for wild animals. Mass detention and disappearance of citizens are common in Oromia region. Citizens allowed to be released by the judges on the bail bonds are kidnapped by Abiy Ahmed's police or by his undercover operatives. Government with such horrible human rights violation cannot be trusted to conduct any investigation. The following government words do not mean nothing. For example, the following statements are direct statement of Mr. Ridwan Hussein, a senior government official, for rejecting the global demand for independent investigation on Mykadra and others. He said, Ethiopia does not need a babysitter. I repeat, he said, Mr. Ridwan said, Ethiopia does not need a babysitter. Another quote, Ethiopia will invite others for assistance only if it feels that it failed to investigate. And the third quote, to assume the government cannot carry out such probes is belittling the government. All these are his expressions in the quote, direct quote. Ethiopia is trashing the global community's concern under the pretext of sovereignty. It is a sign of disrespect and belittling the global will of power. Ethiopia cannot say this statement with its lack of credibility. She is suffering within its own citizens and in the global community. Inviting experts from global community to investigate the war crimes and other high-profile cases can help to increase the credibility of Ethiopia and potentially can eliminate public suspicion toward the government itself. So instead of rejecting by using different excuses, it will be better for Ethiopia to allow independent investigation to verify all the killing happened during Abiy Ahmed administration, plus what happened in Mykadra and also in other areas in Tigray region, instead of trashing the global community, and calling them, babysitters. So I don't know what they got, but they are boasting too much with all kind of ongoing crimes against citizens and all kind of human rights violation recorded by Amnesty International and other Human Rights Watch. So Ethiopia doesn't have a ground to boast, to brag about. COVID-19 testing kits will be available in CVS, Walgreens, and other stores, just like the pregnancy test kits without doctor's prescription. This testing kit is manufactured in Australia, and it gives you the testing results within 15 minutes and it cost about $30. It is a positive development to check ourselves against COVID-19 impacts. Electoral College confirmed Joe Biden's 2020 election win. No change in the Electoral College vote. Biden received 306 versus President Donald Trump 232 votes. This will end Donald Trump's fraud and irregularities claim in the election. Trump, whether he concedes to the defeat or not, he doesn't have legal ground to stay in the White House after January 2021. Concerned citizens media encouraged President Donald Trump and his entire cabinet to leave office with respect and dignity. Again, this is the American people spoken clearly and firmly through their voting rights, and we must respect their calls and move forward. So, no playing game. The election is over. Biden, Kamala Harris are the winners. Give the way for them. Let them govern. So, no playing around. And plus, this all claiming fraud, irregularities without any evidence is shameful, and it's gonna destroy our standing uh, in the global stage. And America cannot criticize others for election irregularities or some kind of uh, unfair practice, especially in Africa. So they're gonna return, hey, you don't even clean your house. How are you gonna talk about our election? So to avoid such things, we have to respect the voice of the people, and we have to allow smooth transfer of power. So don't damage the credibility of the United States. Respect the people's voice. And finally, Turkey, NATO member, the only Muslim NATO member sanctioned by the United States for purchasing S-400 surface-to-air defense missiles from Russian Federation. The sanctions announced Monday target Turkey's presidency of defense industries, its defense procurement entity, as well as the group's president Ismail Demir and 3 other officers. The Turkish officials will face US visa restriction, and their financial assets in the United States will be frozen. Such restriction will deteriorate further Turkish-US diplomatic relation. So the United States is punishing Turkish for purchasing S-400 instead of purchasing similar kind of defense system from the United States. So even though you have the capacity to buy from anywhere, still you will be subject to the United States sanctions if they disagree with your purchase. Okay, that's the reading part of the news. Then I have a couple of videos, and after that we will conclude today's presentation. So the first one is, you might already heard about, I read the Electoral College, and this is, I have one from CNN, and the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell recognizing for the first time the President-elect Biden and Kamala Harris. So after that, I have one more video, then that will be the end for today. Let's listen.
So today I want to congratulate President-elect Joe Biden. The President-elect is no stranger to the Senate. He's devoted himself to public service for many years. I also want to congratulate the Vice President-elect, our colleague from California, Senator Harris. Beyond our differences, all Americans can take pride that our nation has a female Vice President-elect for the very first time. Just a moment ago on the Senate floor, a moment for this country. The Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, of course a very powerful Republican, acknowledging what the majority, frankly, of sitting Republican lawmakers have not yet done, that Joe Biden is the president-elect, Kamala Harris is the vice president-elect, and of course, Poppy, it took several weeks, but the day after the Electoral College spoke, we now hear from the majority leader.
That's right. Let's go straight to our colleague Manu Raju. As Jim said, it's a big moment. But by the way, only to follow Vladimir Putin. I mean, that says a lot that Putin acknowledged it first, no?
Yeah, a lot of Republicans had not been willing to defy the president as he's been making baseless claims and launching conspiracy theory after conspiracy theory about the election. Most Republicans, as we've seen for 4 years in the Trump presidency, don't stray from the president. Rarely do they break party lines here. But this is a significant moment and likely will lead to a floodgate of other Republicans who will acknowledge reality here that they all see, even if they're not willing to acknowledge it publicly, that Joe Biden is in fact the winner here of the election. Mitch McConnell also signaling that there's going to be no appetite at all among Senate Republicans, or very little appetite to do anything to overturn the elections when a joint session of Congress meets on January 6th to formally count the votes. We know House conservatives, there are some who want to try to object and are looking for some Senate Republican partners to try to make an issue of it. They're not going to succeed in that effort. Mitch McConnell clearly recognizes it is now over. Now, I've asked Mitch McConnell this question for weeks, asking him, will you acknowledge Joe Biden as the president-elect? This is very clear. Why won't you say anything right now? Why won't you speak out against the president? He has sidestepped those questions time and again. Also has not raised any issues at all about the president's going after the integrity of the election, trying to undercut a foundation of democracy. We have not heard Mitch McConnell criticize the president one bit. Instead, just now on the floor, he went out through a laundry list of what he viewed as the major accomplishments by this president, eulogizing his time in office, praising everything from his national security policy to confirming judges to the Supreme Court. And then he pivoted to say the Electoral College spoke. It is now time to congratulate Joe Biden, now time to congratulate Kamala Harris, and make clear that they will, in fact, assume power come January 20th. So now the big question, of course, is how will President Trump react at a critical time here on Capitol Hill, where they're trying to get so much done, including a major economic rescue package? Will the president be upset about this in any way? Of course, we don't know what he will ultimately do and sign a deal if they actually do get a deal. But a big moment here, at least, that the Republican leader acknowledging the reality here. We'll see if other Republicans decide to join him, guys.
Okay, that's CNN reporting on the recognition by Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell on the winning of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So after almost how many weeks? Losing is very hard to accept, but if you don't have the way to win, when you don't have any other choices, you have to admit you lost. Admit the defeat and give the way for the winners. That's it. And one more video. Okay, let's see.
this case. All right, back to our regular programming.
Okay, this is update from
the
United
Secretary
Nations.
General listened to the member states as the General Assembly held a closed session to discuss the follow-up to the declaration on the commemoration of the UN 75th anniversary. Secretary General also shared some of his views of the problems we face, ranging from COVID-19 pandemic to rising hunger, air and water pollution, the impact of climate change, war, displacement, and famine. And he pointed out to the need to reinvigorate multilateralism so that it delivers more effectively and inclusively, leaving no one behind. Quick update from Ethiopia, where we continue to engage at the highest levels with the federal government to work out operational details to guarantee humanitarian access. We're also working to scale up humanitarian assistance in the Tigray regions once access is reestablished. In the meantime, our humanitarian colleagues tell us that arrangements are being made to deploy surge teams to different areas in Tigray, Afar, and Amhara, and that supplies, including food, health, emergency shelter, and other items, are being continuously mobilized. More than 63,000 people have been recorded as internally displaced in Tigray, but we hope to know the true number once we have more access. And in neighboring Sudan, our humanitarian teams there tell us that there are still challenges to help the increasing number of refugees crossing the border. Water, hygiene, sanitation services are extremely limited in all transit centers, as well as the Umrukuba settlement, where over 16,000 refugees have now been relocated. More than 50,000 people have now fled to Sudan since the beginning of the conflict in Tigray, which started in early November. And a quick note on resident coordinators, and I'm delighted to announce that, to let you know that the UN Development Coordination Office is announcing today that Siddharth Chatterjee of India has been appointed as the new resident coordinator in China. His appointment follows confirmation from the host government, where he will take up his post in the middle of January of next year. And as you know, Mr. Chatterjee had been the resident coordinator in Kenya. Resident coordinators are the Secretary General's representatives for development at the country level. They lead UN teams supporting countries to recover better from COVID-19 pandemic through the Sustainable Development Goals. We proudly remain with full gender parity and North and South balance among all of our resident coordinators who cover 162 countries and territories. And we congratulate our friend Sid. A note, speaking of resident coordinators, an update from Chile and what we're doing there to address the COVID-19 pandemic. As the Chilean Congress is discussing an immigration bill, the UN team led by the resident coordinator, Sylvia Rux, is carrying out advocacy to ensure that the rights of migrants are respected. UN agencies have delivered life-saving supplies to migrants and refugees by countries the country's northern border. These items include thousands of masks, diapers, and hygiene kits. The UN is also helping to provide guidance on how to reopen schools safely to reintegrate women into the labor market. Our UN teams are also supporting preparation for next year's election to identify how to vote safely during a health crisis. The team is also working to promote gender equality and the inclusion of indigenous people in drafting the country's new constitution. Note on the Geneva International Discussions, and I can tell you that we welcome the resumption of the Geneva International Discussions, which had its 51st session in Geneva on December 11th in person. As you know, this is an important process under the co-chairmanship of the UN, the EU, the OSCE. This was the first meeting of the Geneva International Discussion process in 2020 since the start of the pandemic. We appreciate that despite the challenges, including those brought by the pandemic, all of the participants recognize the vital importance of the Geneva International Discussion and reaffirm their commitment to continue to participate and willingness to engage in this unique platform for dialogue. And as you know, the Geneva International Discussions is a platform for the talks to address the consequences of the 2008 hostilities in Georgia. The GID was launched in Geneva in October of 2008, and the process is co-chaired by the UN, the OSCE, and the European Union. And the UN Refugee Agency and the UN Migration Agency today said they are deeply distressed by the death or disappearance at sea of up to 25 refugees and migrants from Venezuela, including children, after their boat capsized on their way to Trinidad and Tobago. According to reports, between 14 and 21 bodies were found over the weekend floating in waters near the Venezuelan coastal town of Guerilla. Search and rescue efforts continue as there may still be others still missing at sea. The agencies are in contact with the Venezuelan authorities and are on standby to support as necessary. For its part, the UN Human Rights Office urged the Venezuelan and Trinidad and Tobago authorities to coordinate to protect the lives and safety of migrants and refugees, including by operating effective search and rescue at sea, by promptly investigating this incident. Today, the Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Shtayyeh and the acting UN humanitarian coordinator for the occupied Palestinian territory, Lucia Elmi, launched together a $417 million humanitarian response plan to help 1.8 million vulnerable people over the coming year. The latest humanitarian assessments found that 2.45 million Palestinians, 47% of the population, need aid. This past year has seen the unique realities of the COVID-19 crisis in its socioeconomic impact and temporary suspension of coordination between the parties. About 346,000 Palestinians who had been identified as having moderate needs are now assessed to be in severe needs. And you will see yesterday we issued a note yesterday afternoon on Niger, in which the Secretary General strongly condemned the attacks perpetrated by unidentified gunmen in the Difa region on Saturday, in which at least 27 people were reportedly killed and some 800 houses burned. He expressed his deepest condolences to the bereaved families and the people of government of Niger, and wishes a swift recovery to those injured. The Secretary General regrets that this barbaric act disrupted the peaceful holding of municipal and regional elections in the Difa region, and he reiterates his commitment of the UN to support national efforts to consolidate democratic governance, promote social cohesion, and achieve sustainable development. And the 2020 edition of the UN Development Programme's Human Development Report focuses on the actions that are needed if we are to live in balance with the planet in a fairer world. It shows that we are at an unprecedented moment in history in which human activity has become a dominant force shaping the planet, from the climate crisis and biodiversity collapse to ocean acidification. UNDP says that the COVID-19 which almost certainly sprang from humans from animals, offers a glimpse of our future in which the strain of our planet mirrors the strain facing societies. This year's report discusses three key mechanisms for change: social norms and values, incentives and regulations, and a nature-based human development. And UNDP has adjusted its Human Development Index, by which nations are ranked according to their contributions to human development to account for planetary pressures. Take a look at the report; it's very interesting. Also, I wanted to say that we have noted the latest report by the Committee to Protect Journalists, which looks back at the arrests of and harassment of journalists over the last year. And I can tell you that the Secretary General is appalled by the findings and reiterates the fact that journalists, especially in this year of pandemic, need to be able to do their job freely, free of harassment and arrests. And he will continue to advocate on their behalf, and I'll have a more formal note for you by email. And tomorrow morning, 10:30, there will be a virtual press briefing by the President of the UN Economic and Social Council, Munir Akram. That's at 10:30 through WebEx. He will brief on the topic, responding to COVID-19, what will it take to recover better? The briefing is being organized by the UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs. I will now take your questions.
Okay, that's just a brief description or a briefing from United Nations and the updates on the Ethiopian refugees in Sudan. There are now more than 60,000. The number is increasing, but the Ethiopian government said the war is over. I don't know how the numbers are keep increasing. So they may not tell us the correct information. The number is increasing. The United Nations is still working with the government to reach the refugees within the Tigray and the Amara region. Anyway, that is the update from United Nations, and that's all I have from Concerned Citizens Media for today. Thank you for listening, and stay safe from this dangerous virus, and the vaccination is already started. It may take time to reach us, but still we have to continue practicing proper guidelines of prevention, and even after we get the vaccination, we have to keep to make sure this virus is not coming back, it's not continually affect us. It's really a disaster. It kills almost 300,000 only in America, plus millions affected here and around the globe. So it's very serious danger. It affected all aspects of our life, very bad. So be safe. Thank you again for listening, and you can comment on my video, or you can send me factual based news, or you can comment, suggest, like, dislike, whatever it is open for discussion. Thank you, and be safe, and so long everyone.